Okay, folks, we've been talking about the different tools that skillful readers use as they read orally. We said that skillful readers always read accurately. That means they say the words that are there. If they come to a word that they don't know, they don't skip it, they don't guess it, and they don't just mumble it and keep going. They decode the word, which means they break it apart and sound out each part. Then they recode the word and put it back together and read the word as a whole. We also said that skillful readers read fluently. That means they're not reading too fast and they're not reading too slowly. They read at an appropriate pace. We've also said they read with prosody or expression. That means they pay attention to things like punctuation and the way that the text is written to help them to know that maybe they need to emphasize a certain word, or maybe they need to read the sentence as a question or with strong feeling or in a quiet way. Prosody, accuracy, and fluency help our comprehension a lot. But we said sometimes a skillful reader may be reading and they read a word accurately, but they don't know what that word means. We said in that case, you could look the word up in a dictionary, you could ask someone the meaning, or you can use context clues. And context clues means I read the entire sentence where the word appears, and I may also read sentences around that sentence to help me figure out the meaning of the unknown word. Today we're going to talk about a tool that we use whenever we read a nonfiction text. And this is a very important tool because sometimes in my classroom, boys and girls read a nonfiction text, then they take an AR test or they're talking to me about the book, and they don't really have all the information that was in the book. They may even say things like, "Mr. Atkins, the book didn't tell me that." But when we look back in the text, we find it. And we find that a lot of times the reason why they don't know that information is because they didn't pay attention to text features. So if you'll take a second to read our outcome, you'll see what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, let's read this together. Identify text features and understand how they aid comprehension. I've underlined and boxed some words here that are really important words in our outcome. First is the word identify. Identify means I point it out. I say, there it is right there. Text features is what we're going to talk about shortly. And the word aid is another word for help. So let's read this outcome again. Point out text features and understand how they help comprehension. So I have a nonfiction passage today that we're going to look at, and as we look at it, I'm going to identify some important text features. Now I want to tell you something very important. This passage does not have all of the text features that you may see, but it does have some very important ones I want to point out to you so we can identify them and see how they help our comprehension. First, I have what's called a heading or a title, Earth and its Neighbors. This tells me this entire passage is going to be about Earth and its neighbors. Next, I have subheadings, and they simply divide the text into parts so that I'll know what each part is about. So this part here is called telescopes, looking up. So I know if I'm reading this text and I want to find out about telescopes, this is where I'll look. Next, I have another subheading that's called satellites, a step closer. So that tells me that in this text, if I want to find information about satellites, this is where I'll look. Finally, one giant leap. Now, I remember hearing someone talk about one giant leap for mankind, and it had to do with someone walking on the moon. So I'm using background knowledge to tell me, based on this subheading, this section is probably about man first walking on the moon. So headings and subheadings are an important text feature. Another text feature that's very important is illustrations or photographs. These are important because whenever we're reading a nonfiction text, it's usually going to have information we're not familiar with. And whenever we see information we're not familiar with, it helps us out a whole lot if we can see a picture to go along with it to show us exactly what that looks like. Next, authors want to make sure that we understand what is in the picture, so they include captions. Captions are simply descriptions beside, on top of, under or above a picture that describe it for us. Next, an author may have important words that they want to make sure that we notice. And in that case, they may use highlighting or bolding. This helps to tell the reader, you need to pay attention to this word. It's important. So we've seen headings, subheadings, photographs, illustrations, captions, and bold and highlighting. There's another text feature in this passage I want to show you, and it is a chart or a diagram. Authors use this to explain and also organize important information for us. So on this chart here, I have a heading called What Can We See? And then I have little subheadings telling me what each column is about. Here are things we can see with just our eyes. Here are things we can see with a simple telescope, and here are things that we can see with the Hubble telescope. So diagrams are a very interesting and simple way to explain information that's a lot easier to understand than if we had several lengthy sentences here. Also, one last thing might be a text box. This is just something that the author wants us to notice and be aware of, or maybe think about. Skillful readers pay attention to text features because they know text features will help them to find things in a text and will help them to better understand what they're reading. So skillful readers never skip text features. So folks, today I have an opportunity or two for you to practice identifying, locating, and picking out text features. And as you do so, I want you to pay special attention to how those text features make the text more interesting and also help you to better understand it. Thanks, folks. Have a great day.